Hello there guys, and welcome to a very special edition of VNB. Today we will be concentrating on the widely known female genital mutilation, also known as FGM, affecting an estimated 140 million women around the world. Today we will be discussing a campaign ending FGM with the NSPCC, and to top it off, they have created a short film which will be played at the end with real life stories.
Well, I was 16 and it was a nice warm day, normal day. There was no idea it was going to happen. The room was already prepared for our cutting, because in Sierra Leone we call it the cutting. So in that room, as I laid on the floor, another friend of my mom, who's quite big, she sat on my chest. She almost is sitting to keep me quiet from screaming, because I was fighting and like, what's going on? And at the same time, people are pulling my clothing and pulling my knickers. So she came in with the knives and little blades in her hand, and a cloth was put in my mouth so I couldn't scream.
So ladies and gentlemen, I am here with the wonderful Saria Khalifa. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you, Farhat. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Nice to meet you and welcome onto the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. Now, a bit about yourself. What inspired you to get into FGM?
So I kind of knew about the issue of FGM because I was living in Sudan, which is where I'm from, and it's an issue that happens there. So I found out about it, kind of started getting involved, did a couple of lectures, did not go down well. But I was very lucky when I came to the UK. Forward has a youth group, and they invited me to come and perform at an event, and I didn't know it was an FGM event. I was just told it's about women's rights and empowerment, so I wrote a poem that I wrote about, I read a poem about African women and their rights, and then got really hooked to the group, and kind of the idea of empowering girls and women and talking about issues that affect their bodies and affect their lives. And then just, they couldn't get rid of me.
Well, we're lucky to have you as well then. What is female genital mutilation, also known as FGM? It's so widely known, and would you care to give us a bit more information?
Yeah, so female genital mutilation, or FGM, it's sometimes known as female circumcision. It's basically a practice that involves changing, removing, or altering a girl's genitalia. And really the most important part of the definition is for non-medical reasons. So you have healthy genitalia that get changed or altered, removed for other reasons.
Is it legal in the UK?
So that's a really good point. So it is not legal in the UK. FGM has been illegal since 1985. And basically if someone gets caught either practicing FGM on someone, helping someone to practice it, it could be things like calling to arrange for it, or assisting someone. They could face up to 14 years in prison. So it's quite a long prison sentence.
Yes. What are some of the health concerns for girls on FGM?
So with FGM, when we talk about health concerns, there's long-term health concerns, so things that might happen to a girl or woman throughout her whole life. And there's short-term health concerns. So those are things that happen at the time of the practice. So whenever you get cut in any part of your body, it leads to bleeding, it leads to a lot of pain, it could lead to girls going into shock because it's so painful. Girls also can have infections because they're getting parts removed, the instruments or the blades might not be clean. What we also find later on in life is that some girls say they have a really hard time going to the bathroom or having their periods, or later on when they get married and having, physical relations, they're a bit anxious or concerned about that.
Up to today, we have problems. We thinking about always. Sometimes you are in the bus, you remember what happened when you were little. It's trauma. This is traumatic. You feel.
Now, FGM is also considered to be child abuse. However, some people say it's tradition.
With FGM, FGM in the UK is classed as a form of child abuse. So that's, I suppose, I know there's a lot of disagreement around that, but the thing is that's kind of a fact in the UK. It's seen as the same way any other kind of form of physical abuse would be classed as. For some community members, because FGM is something that they've been practicing for generations, it's something that their mum will go through, it's something that auntie will go through, grandma will go through, they feel it's very much a part of their culture and part of their tradition. The challenge is that FGM is a very harmful practice. In some cases, girls might have long-term health complications. They might not be able to go to the bathroom, or in some worst case cases, girls can die.
Yeah.
So it's kind of thinking, how do we balance up something that's so harmful and could have such an impact on girls and still class it as our culture or tradition? The average age that FGM happens is about 5 to 8 years old. So you're talking about primary school girls. What we know in some communities, it could be 2 months old, 2 weeks old. In some communities, girls could be 12 or 13 years old. So there's quite a big range, but usually the average is 5 to 8.
What would you consider being better?
Better?
5
okay.
or 12?
So I think better is a really hard term, because I think the challenge is it's people's kind of personal experience of what happened to them. Some community members will tell you, oh, we should practice it when they're very, very young because they won't remember it. The challenge is sometimes I've met girls where it happened to them and it was very young, and they don't remember, and they find out later on in life when they get examined or that it happened to them. And that is really difficult for them to kind of comprehend, because they think, oh, I'm perfectly fine, and then get told one day, oh, this thing happened to you and you don't remember it and you now have to deal with it. I've also met girls who it's happened to them when they're older and they very vividly remember it, and they get flashbacks or they cry, and it's a very traumatic kind of experience.
I still have nightmares when I sleep. I have bad dreams of what happened to me 25 years ago. It stays with you forever, you know, because the scars will not go away.
What can be some of the major health concerns and I'm speaking long term, you know, having children, getting married, the future?
So in kind of a lot of the major health concerns relate to either being able to have children or actual childbirth and delivery. So particularly in cases in the UK, if a woman has not told her midwife that she's undergone FGM, or the midwife hasn't asked her, or they don't know she's had it, it might lead to her having a cesarean section, which is a surgery you need to do to get the baby out, which then means she's got a longer recovery time. It's something that is detrimental, could be detrimental to her health. And also there's challenges around being able to have children and physical relationships with your husband or with your partner, which might be more challenging for some women and girls who've had FGM.
Yeah. Now, what are some of the reasons for this practice?
So some of the reasons for the practice, kind of one of the main reasons communities give is culture and tradition. They'll say this is something we've done for generations and generations and no one's ever questioned it. When you start to kind of strip away that reason and say, but why is it important in your culture, or why do you want to practice it? You'll get reasons around cleanliness, purity. So you'll hear myths like, if you don't practice FGM, you won't be clean, or the area will smell. Also, you hear things around making sure that a girl is a virgin. So they'll say, oh, well, if she's had FGM, she won't want to have physical relationships, or we can physically prove she is a virgin. And in some communities that means that your bride price goes up, or someone will want to marry you.
As far as the Quran is concerned, there is nothing in the Quran which claims or states that we have to conduct female genital mutilation. It doesn't exist. There is no reliable or authentic sources or powerful sources in Islam which commands or which requires a young girl to undergo such a mutilation.
Some people say that this is a religious practice. However, it has not been said in the Bible or the Quran. What is your viewpoint on this?
So that's a really fantastic point. For some community members, they feel that it's a religious obligation. And I think particularly when we use the term female circumcision, some people want to make it similar to male circumcision. So as you said, it's not mentioned in the Quran, which is the Muslim holy text. It's not mentioned in the Bible. It's not mentioned in the Torah, which is the Jewish holy text. And there's no evidence that it's important, particularly kind of speaking as a Muslim. I think it contradicts a lot of core Islamic principles. So we're told we're not allowed to change our bodies. So a lot of Muslim people will agree you can't get a tattoo because you're not allowed to physically alter your body. God gave it to you as a gift. So whenever I kind of get people who tell me, oh, it's a religious obligation, I'll ask, well, is that not changing your body? Are we not physically removing parts of it?
Why would you say that the people back home might think it is a religious practice?
So I think the challenge is sometimes as communities, as people, as societies, we just take what we're told. And the challenge is particularly with kind of very massive things like religion or philosophy or certain kind of huge cultural concepts. You listen to what your mom tells you, you listen to what your aunt tells you, you listen to what your friend tells you. And so if a lot of community members believe it's religious, no one then questions that. Like no one's going to be like, show me where the text is, where exactly it is. You'll just say, my mom told me it's religious. To be a good Muslim, I have to practice it. Or to be a good Christian, I have to practice it. Or to be a good whatever, I have to practice. And you believe that because when you're young and your mom tells you something, or your dad tells you something, or auntie tells you, just go, they're right, because they're adults.
The Bible is very clear. There isn't any requirement. It doesn't make a woman more honorable. It doesn't make her more acceptable in the sight of God.